Miami, when it comes to Canadians purchasing property in Florida, traditionally you've had two types of people making these investments, right? One, it's going to be your typical snowbirds, right? Mm-hmm. People that want to come down to Florida, they want to enjoy the weather, they want to enjoy the dining, entertainment, whatever it is. They're attracted to South Florida for a specific reason personally. Okay, so these people are going to be looking for properties for their own personal use, for their family and whatnot. Then you've also had capitalists, right? People that are looking to invest, looking to make a return on investment. This is what I deal with more so in my business, being a tax and financial advisor in Toronto. I can tell you anecdotally that there is a huge interest amongst my client base, which is going to be considered the high net worth client base in Toronto, looking south of the border, specifically to the state of Florida, specifically to this area. We're in beautiful Fort Lauderdale, but they're also looking all around the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, right? But over the last 10 years, I want to say there's been a new interest in sort of a hybrid between personal use and investment use, that being, let's call it short-term rentals, right? So with the rise of platforms like Airbnb, Vrbo, and such, you have the opportunity for people that are not ultra high net worth, that can't necessarily afford to have a home for themselves for personal use, but can afford to have a home that they somewhat use once in a while and supplement the operating costs by renting it out short term. So it's sort of a new area. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk to the two of you about purchasing a home as a Canadian, where to look, what do I got to think about if it's a personal use home, transitioning that home into a short-term rental. I know that it's not a huge area of your practice, but I still want to know what you guys know about it, okay? And I want to dive into pure investment. And, my understanding, I'm sitting here in your brand new home that you guys built, there's more opportunity than just the traditional buy, hold, and rent sort of deal. There's also opportunity to build, modify, and make money that way. So if we can touch on those three things, personal use, hybrid use, and investment, that would be great. Let's start with purchasing a home for yourself, right? Really, the Fort Lauderdale area, I'm sure, is what you guys know the best, correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is where we live, and this is where we do a lot of our business. And we're familiar with the other areas, but for sure, we can talk like from A through Z about Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, so. Especially like now we're definitely finding that we're working more hyper locally. I remember when I first started in real estate, and don't get me wrong, we still work that South Florida market well for our clients because, Canadians are buying all over. They want Miami, they want Palm Beach, Delray, Boca. It's always a lifestyle budget choice depending on what their needs are or their desires are. And we'll talk a little bit about those as we dive in. But I remember driving to Naples to set up a new listing because we were new and we kind of just had to like follow the money, right? And do whatever deals we could do.
Right.
But now as we've, started working closer to home, it's getting a little bit more hyper local. We recently built our own home and we started working with a few developers. We represent 3 development companies that are building single family homes in a pretty small community in East Fort Lauderdale. So we're starting to become experts in that while continuing to service traditional buyers and sellers. So
where are you guys seeing like the deal flow happening when it comes to Canadians in this area? Is it like right here in Fort Lauderdale or somewhere on the outskirts?
No, I mean, I really think that people want to be east. I mean, I don't think Canadians want to come to then be 45 minutes from the beach, right? So I think a lot of where people want to be is closer to the water. So I would say like 2-mile radius to the beach is where we see a lot of where the Canadians want to be at and purchase these homes. There's no point of going out west for,
Right.
for somebody because it's not close to the beach, and you have the suburbs, and you're gonna have more like families. You don't have as much like action restaurants or whatever. So I definitely think it's east of 95. Let's just say east of 95, and even more so east of US 1, which then gets you really close to the beach. But the price points are, the more east you go, the higher the price point kind of.
So clearly,
ultimately, it's like, where can they afford to be? We have clients who have purchased out west, 30 minutes from the beach, and they're happy there. And that was the price point that, they could get into, right? The closer you want to be to the water and to the sand, the more it's going to cost you, right? Obviously, then you get into the whole single family homes versus condominiums.
Right.
There's a big stretch here on Fort Lauderdale Beach called the Galt Ocean Mile between basically Commercial Boulevard and Oakland Boulevard on the sand that's heavily populated with snowbirds and mostly Canadians. There was a few years back, where they put banners up on A1A that in November saying, "Welcome back, Woodbridge." Right? So they're there. The wealthy Canadians that are in Fort Lauderdale have condos right on the sand, right?
Right.
And these condos, it's a lifestyle play. You're spending top dollar on maintenance, on taxes, beautifully renovated units, but when you leave, you lock it up.
Yeah.
And
These
you
are
go, and there's
strictly
nothing
personal.
to take care of.
They're
right?
strictly personal
Right.
use. There's no like hybrid investment. It's just strictly personal use.
Yeah,
So
because they're restricted, right? The condos, like, you don't want a Airbnb tenant next door to you
obviously,
when you're in a residential building. So for the maybe 75% that are seasonal, there's probably still 25% of full-time people that live there. Right? Maybe even more. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know what the
So when you're
exact
saying
numbers
condos like close to the beach, or maybe even on the beach, we're pretty close to the beach here, right?
Oh, yeah,
we go walk to the beach,
are.
basically.
Walk to the beach.
yeah.
Most of my clients, especially the older ones who are successful, who have been successful financially, they buy like right on the beach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have these beautiful condos. My understanding is that owning a condo, I have a couple condos in Toronto. I have nothing here. But my understanding is owning a condo here is a lot different than owning a condo in Toronto, specifically when it comes to insurance costs, condo fees, whatever you guys call it here, right?
Well, look,
And then property tax.
we're
right?
more prone to natural disasters. Like,
Right.
clearly, hurricane season comes. Insurance requirements for that are costly as you're seeing more natural disasters. Yeah, I think I read something that there was another 15% insurance increase rate. That doesn't matter if it's a condo or a single family home.
So it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. Yeah. Taxes, it's irrelevant. Although somebody just told me that a house on the water pays a little bit of a higher millage on the tax rate than a house not on the water. I mean, I believe it,
Right.
but I don't think it's like substantial. We typically tell our buyers to plan for about 1.8 to 2% of the purchase price in taxes. And you got to watch out because it's misleading. You look at a homesteaded owner, so you have somebody who owned the property for 20 years.
Right.
But that they're Florida residents. That's
Florida.
what homesteaded means, because
Okay.
I'm sure.
Yeah, Florida resident. So if you're a resident of Florida, you can homestead your property. And what that does is it caps the amount that they can increase your taxes every year. And it
Gives you a little bit of a break, even though it's not that significant.
Little bit of a break
when you
on-
go to luxury, but
Right.
exactly, right? So you got to look at, some people will look at what the taxes are
and they're like,
currently.
oh, it's cool, it's
and they,
fine.
oh, this isn't that bad.
Easy, yeah.
And then boom, 18
get
months
hit with the
later,
bill.
you
Yeah.
get you get reassessed and you get a rude awakening, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a client who built a house and purchased a piece of land for, I don't know, about $1 million, let's just say, right? Put another $1 million in change in it, not being homesteaded, and is probably looking at a $75,000 tax bill, right? So I know you guys in the GTA aren't used to these big
No. We don't
property
pay that kind
taxes,
of
right?
property tax. No.
And being that home prices have increased so much in the last 3 to 5 years, let's say, the taxes have increased with them.
Right.
So, it's an affordability thing. And,
Right.
Forget about the Canadians, right? Even local resident buyers are now faced with increased mortgage rates hovering at like 7%,
Right.
increased insurance, increased taxes, and now it's like, holy shit, can I afford this home?
Right.